So Camden first started looking at email and file encryption because we knew we had an issue in that we couldn't provide business users with a simple way of sending encrypted emails to the range of people that they needed to communicate with. And in particular, I was talking to some social work managers who and explaining to them that the way to do things was you could either send something through WinZip encrypted, or you could send a Word attachment with a password on it, or you could use one of the government secure networks. And during that conversation, people were just switching off and glazing over. Even, here's an easy user guide, I said, and of course they said, well, that's nowhere near easy enough for us. We want a one-click solution to this, otherwise we're not going to be able to do it, we're very busy. And so fair enough, I thought, I've got that message loud and clear, I'm going to go away and try and find a solution that's one click for them, and I won't come back until I have. So what happened coincidentally was I was actually at a conference in the next couple of weeks, and I thought that if this is a problem for us in Camden, I'm sure it's going to be a problem for other councils across London. And I met up with some of my colleagues, and of course it was an issue that was quite a live issue for them as well. And so we decided collectively to do a procurement, really partly to save time and energy, but also we realised that something that was, that we needed a solution that was common across us as an IT community, but that the end users, people like care homes, who currently had no way of communicating with securely, that those care homes actually dealt with all of us, or large groups of us. They might be communicating with Camden and Islington, and that we needed to provide something that was a simple, single solution for them as well. So it was kind of a mirror image really, and the idea of the community out there, the third parties that we needed to speak to needing a single solution, and that we needed a single solution as well. So that's really how the project came about, and we got together with 17 other councils across London who were interested in trying to get a single solution across London for this. It was great because we had experts, all sorts of different experts. We had some very, very, very impressive technical expertise from Brent. We had some great help from Hackney, who looked at the business case. We also had some end users in the group specifying our requirements and helping us to evaluate some of the bids. So we had a really good collective response to this. And what Camden did was really pull the paperwork together for everyone, so that we had a framework for the purchasing of the product, and also a framework for getting through the procurement and the legal side that would be as seamless and as simple for everybody as it could be. So there was no barrier for them to buy in, and for us to spread that network as far as we could. When we were selecting the products, obviously we did it collectively. We had a really interesting group of people from across all of the councils. We had Dave from Brent, fantastic on some of the very technical areas around security and encryption. We had frontline users who were very heavily engaged with social workers who could judge the usability. We had people from Hackney who'd done a fantastic job on the business case, really, around some of the savings. What was really key was obviously it had to be technically secure, otherwise there would be no reason for us to be buying it in the first place. That was really important, that had to be ticked off. And quite a lot of the solutions were technically secure, in truth, but the second thing which was really critical from the Camden perspective, and I think from the other perspectives as well, was the issue about usability. No good having something that was fantastically secure but really clunky, because it wouldn't be used. I mean, that's my experience of other IT projects. They can be technically perfect, but if they're unusable, they simply will not roll out easily, and you will have a huge training overhead. So obviously we particularly didn't want a lot of training help desk calls. We wouldn't be resourced to do that for a lot of third-party organisations who might be quite remote from us. There was no way we would be able to do that. So those were the two sort of critical factors, and actually we wanted both out of the solution. We didn't want to compromise. We wanted high technical quality and this really ease of use flexibility. The trust approach, the community of users on Egress, makes it easier for all of us, I think, in that in that the councils themselves have this one solution and can take advantage of some of the price advantages of buying in bulk and the volume discounts that we get, but that the third parties that are using the solution, they're a community in themselves. And each of those, for example, a care home, we might feel as a council that actually we're dealing just with that one care home. From their perspective, they may be dealing with 10 or more councils, and there was no way that we could be offering them a solution and Islington or other neighbouring boroughs asked them to use something different. So for us, what was really important was that we wouldn't be confusing care home workers, administrators, who presumably are busy people who just sending emails is a very small part of their daily work. We didn't want to confuse them with lots of different ways of doing it. We felt that if they were given lots of options from different councils, they would probably use none of them properly. So that was quite important. It was a kind of a win-win that they would, that they would find it simple and usable, and that we as a community of councils would look also joined up, that we'd come up with something collectively that worked for them. So in terms of the benefits that Egress has brought to Camden, I mean, there are efficiencies, there are cost savings, and there's sort of compliance as well. And I think the initial driver for us was compliance. We knew that sometimes emails weren't being sent securely because there were emergency situations that staff had to respond to, and we knew that we had to do something about that. So the first area that we really wanted to nail down was the issue of making sure that people had a simple way of doing that, making sure that sensitive data wasn't leaving the council, being sent to the wrong recipients, all those kind of data loss issues that have resulted in some councils and other organisations having big fines from the Information Commissioner. That was very key to Camden in terms of reputational damage and financial fines. That was the first issue. The second issue was the sort of business benefits of people not having to print off documents, package them up, send them with couriers or recorded delivery. The assurance that the documents had actually made it to the end users, to the recipients of them. I mean, the typical example would be something like a child protection case conference, which says that, extremely sensitive information going to a number of different agencies, sometimes 20 or so people in a meeting. Every pack, which could be 100 or so pages, would have to be printed off, packaged up, mailed out or couriered, and then shredded after the event. So the administration of that, very heavy. And in children's schools and families in Camden, their budget just for mailing and couriering those sorts of documents around to external organisations, something like £40,000 when we started this project, and that's been reduced down now by at least 25%, if not more. It's the efficiency really of the process end to end that, rather than people getting up to the printer, printing things off, they can do it from their desk. So since we've been working with Egress, the sorts of things that we've felt that they do really well as a company, it's been quite a pleasure really to work with a small, medium-sized organisation that's so responsive to us collectively as councils who may come up with additional requirements, or some areas that we feel could be just improved upon. And the fact that as a company they do listen, they're very, very keen to get that feedback. And unlike some other companies, which where every enhancement, so-called enhancement, would therefore require £25,000 worth of development work, Egress actually, I think, see those enhancements as benefiting them in terms of their product. So, they see our feedback and our input into their product, I think, as being something that helps them to develop something that can be, that's that much more saleable and can be rolled out across the country more easily. And so that has been, a really good point, I think. And the other area I think that's been really good is just the fact that their model in terms of supplying the product is that they provide the support to the third parties, they provide the help desk, and I think they therefore pick up the sorts of things directly from third parties that they struggle with. So if it had been the case that they had struggled getting logged onto the system in the first place, Egress would hear that and would respond to that and try and fix it. Otherwise they would be deluged with calls, So I think they've just been responsive in understanding that listening to a group of councils has actually helped them build their product into something and develop it into other areas that, that other councils have found really useful. So the way I see the relationship developing with Egress in the future is that we're looking at a couple of other areas that we can use Egress that should be quite innovative and also potentially big cost savings. And those two areas are around, the first one is around trying to automate some of the decisions that people have to make when they're sending emails out. So if the end user actually is sending something that's sensitive, but they haven't thought it through, we want the gateway to capture that and on the basis of some keywords to make some decisions on their behalf and say, I think this should be an encrypted email. Secondly, the other area that's, I think, one of the biggest wins is for us to have communication with residents in Camden. At the moment, I'm sure a lot of residents are thinking, why do we get so many letters from the council still, council tax letters? Most of us find letters quite difficult to deal with these days. So the idea here is to use Egress alongside our business applications, for example, council tax system, and where we would normally do mass mail outs across the whole of all of the residents in Camden, you know, hundreds of thousands of letters going out a year. We're thinking, instead of that, are there a proportion of people who would rather be opting into having that emailed to them securely? And those sorts of communication options are becoming areas that Camden's looking into in a lot more depth in terms of their sort of customer services programme going forward, wanting to make sure that people are getting information in the format that they want it, and if they want it electronically, that we'll provide it that way.